Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pro Cheerleading Podcast on location. Do I look fancy or what? I need somebody to take this in real quick. I am at my best friend, Sarika Parton. This is not your last name anymore. She's over here, you guys. It is, but she'll always be Sarika Parton to me because we have similar enough last names and very unique first names. But she has an amazing view of the Puget Sound. I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but it has been blazing in Seattle. Something just flew by me. I'll get to that in a second. I'm not a outdoorsy girl, but I do love the sun, and it's been burning up here in Seattle. And I love the heat. It has been hard to sleep, but I'm here for it. And today, because she has AC, I decided to come over and be outside. That makes a lot of sense, right? Whatever. But it's cooling down. It's like in the 80s. I wish I could show you how beautiful it is over here, but maybe later before I hang up. But thank you so much for joining. We have a lot to freaking talk about. Last week was a little bit of a shit show, you guys, and I didn't go live. There was a lot going on, and it's that time of the year at work. It's the end of the quarter. I have a nice cocktail here to get me through tomorrow, my last day. Thank you so much. This color, it's a little mustardy, but thank you. You guys want to see this view, huh? Okay, if my whole contraption falls apart, then you asked for it. Okay, so for YouTube land, can you see the beautiful sound back there? It's gorgeous. If I rotate too much, you won't see anything because of the light. Oh man, okay, here we go. This is gonna be extra, but here you're gonna see what I'm working with out here. This is her view, you guys. Can you see the beautiful sun? If not, then you asked for it and I tried. It's gorgeous. And now I have to get situated again. So if things fly by me, you guys, and I make weird noises and scream, it's because I really don't do bugs. I really don't do outdoors much, period. But let me tell you what I did. This girl right here, I was just in St. Austin. That is not what it's called. I have a drink, you guys, but it's not that strong. I was in Austin, Texas. With Brittany over the weekend, and we had such a freaking amazing time. Shout out to Bridget. Bridget, where are you? I know you're somewhere, but she is a cheerleader for the USA Cheerleaders, the Austin chapter. She has been a diehard, just a wonderful support of the podcast from like a long time now, and we felt like we knew each other, but we just met in Austin. She came out with us and had brunch. And then she took us on, okay, I don't even know what this was called. I should have like wrote it down. But there is like a Colorado River that flows through the city, right? There's a bridge that the bats were supposed to fly out of, but they didn't. But that's another story. It's fine because that would have scared me. But there's a huge river, and there's a portion of it that is like where you can actually stand up in it. And there were so many people out there with kayaks. I don't swim, you guys. I love the water, but I don't swim. And Brittany was behind me, like steering the whole thing. And I actually kayaked down the damn river, got off the kayak, managed to get back on the kayak, which was very challenging, but hung out. It was just so fun and something I would never do ever. But it was really, really cool. And she actually hadn't done that in that part of the city. So thank you, Bridget, for such an amazing time. Austin was fun. The food was amazing. Love the hotel that we were staying at in the area off of Rainy Street. But I will come to your city, you guys. And if you are down to have lunch, brunch, drinks, I think it's so fun to meet up with people that I communicate with online all the time. So super fun trip. So I wanted to give you guys a little heads up on that, and that I will be in Florida, the Fort Lauderdale area next week for the full week. So if you're in that area and you want to get out and, I don't know, do something, drink, eat something, let me know. Happy to connect with you. But Brittany and I had a blast, so I just wanted to say that. That also complicated things for last week too, but your girl is back. You guys ready to talk about auditions, because like the NBA auditions are popping up like popcorn. I've been posting in the story all of the places that are, getting like teasers out of auditions coming up. And I'll give a more like detailed update. I'll do like a scan of all the NBA teams and give you the information. I think you guys all follow the team, so I try to spare you information that you probably already know. But I was pretty excited when I saw the Chicago Lovables had posted their announcement of the new coach that they have, you guys. Toya Ambrose, she's from Tone Society. I'm sure you all are familiar with her as a choreographer. She's a former Level Bulls dancer. She's got tons of years of experience, 20 plus years of choreographing and coaching for different teams, um, a lot of the collegiate teams as well. So I think that's a really full circle moment, and super excited to see what she does with the Lovables. I'm excited to see what all these teams do this year in particular. I feel like everybody's been sitting on a bunch of creativity because of the corona, and now that you just are going to have fans back, it's just going to be like, just, I'm going to say balls out because I can't think of a better expression, but I just think it's going to be really, really exciting to see what you guys are up to once you get back on the field, once you get on the court. But more to come on the NBA circuit. I know that NFL auditions are coming to a close. I'm really excited about an episode that I'm going to do. I don't know if it'll make it this season, but the roster information is starting to come out. And you guys know how I am about bios and wanting to see like what people do, who's interesting, who's catching my eye. And so I'm going to pick the most interesting person that I see on the roster. And I'm going to go down the list and I'm going to tell you guys who, somebody to watch. Just based on my view, I can kind of tell who sticks out. So I'm excited to do that. Maybe we'll wrap the season with that. The season actually, you guys, is kind of ending pretty quickly. So that almost makes me sad, but we got some summer to have, some enjoyment, some drinks. Something just flew by me again, but it's okay. I'm really excited about tomorrow too, you guys. There is a coaches panel put on by Cultivate Code. If you aren't familiar, I know you guys have heard me talk about that before, but Cultivate Code is founded by Sabrina and Amira from Golden State Warriors, and they were so sweet to ask me to be a moderator of a discussion about auditions, like all things auditions with some of the NBA coaches. And this lineup is sick. I'm really, really honored to do this. And I hope you guys are signed up. You can register on the link in their bio. So it's free. Hello, it's free. It's from 5 to 6 tomorrow evening, Pacific Standard Time. So I think it's well worth it. You guys should absolutely attend. I think you'll get plenty of nuggets based on this list of questions that you can use for their auditions or any auditions that you're still going through in the NFL or any league that you guys are auditioning for. So let me tell you who's going to be there. Okay. Alyssa from the Nick City Dancers, Natalia, I hope I'm saying her name right. It's Natalia from Miami Dance Team. She's like the dance team director. So a lot of these titles, they may not be perfect, but Miami Heat, okay? Then we have Michelle from Blazers and Paige from the Oklahoma City Thunder. So this lineup, and you guys, a lot of questions that are like all the things that you would be dying to ask. If you're at like one of the workshops, you'll hear the different perspectives, talking about virtual auditions. Like, I don't need to tease this anymore. It's free. You should go. I hope you enjoy. I'll be there again as a moderator of the discussion. And so I'm super excited about that tomorrow. So that's kind of like the updates that I wanted to share before we get into this article. Okay, so who read the article? I asked in the stories for your reactions to the article. This was a 5,000 word piece that Paige Skinner wrote for Sports Illustrated. They wanted to hear kind of like what is the state of pro cheerleading right now? And so it covers NFL, NBA, and it's so thorough. I was actually Ray said, I did. Yes, Ray. I'm glad you guys did. There was just so much in there. And I think she did a really great job of trying to be well-rounded in the perspectives that she brought up and raised in the article. Because let's talk about, I'm going to drink and then we're going to talk. If you still want to get your thoughts in about, your reaction to the article, hopefully this week, unlike a couple of weeks ago, I'll be able to access it with this other phone. And I can keep it anonymous so you guys can feel free to speak your mind. But I want to address something real quick after I take a sip. I have ice so I don't die out here, but now I can't get to my dang on drink too well. I need a straw and then I'll just suck it down. But anyway, one more. Okay, so if I could get a straw. I'm just kidding. I don't need a straw. We don't need a Lush moment. I already feel like I'm kidding, Srika. Srika is the freaking best. Okay, you guys, I'm ready to get into this article. Let me pull up your comments. But so before that, I think I'm too excited. Let me calm down. So usually when an article comes out about our space, it's so heavily focused on like the drama, the issues, the scandal, to the point where I think a lot of people get really nervous, kind of upset even sometimes because they don't feel like it's a very balanced discussion of like what we love about cheerleading, what we enjoy about it, like good programs that are out there. Um, and so I do want to acknowledge that because I think it is always important to have a balanced discussion. Like with this podcast, even I try to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. And, you know, knowing that it won't be perfect and we get that. Thank you. We understand that. And I think that the more balanced the discussion can be, I think the better picture the general public will have about why these issues matter because and I just thought the article did a great job of capturing different viewpoints. I don't know how you guys feel about it. I know that there was a reference to some people being happy with their program, happy with their pay, and you know, I'll just say this again. I know it came up in the context of the idea of unionization. But if you are part of a program where it is amazing, you're paid well, you're treated well, and it's just fabulous 101, then the idea is that you would want everybody to have that experience with their program, right? So it's like you can't have just this bubble of like, I'm good, so none of these issues really matter or they don't affect me because as we all know, First Ladies of Football, I think, was like the last program that anybody expected to be a target of something where we no longer, okay, now I'm going to knock my drink over, where we no longer exist, right? Because, so if you're part of a program, like say, for example, the Cardinals or, the Raiderettes, and your program is not normal, I didn't mean it that way, but your program is all female or whatever it might be, your ideal program, right? And all it takes is one executive in the front office, a change in ownership, a change in management that can ultimately decide, you know what, we need to move a different direction. We want to be gender inclusive or gender neutral. And then what do you have? You know what I'm saying? You have a change that you were not a part of in terms of the discussion. And so nobody's safe in that way. So I just think we have to kind of broaden our perspective of our space and just know that we're all super, super connected. I love that the article talked about NFL and NBA because a lot of these issues already happen in the NBA and now they're in the NFL. So I'm going to get into some of the, I shared in my story, like my favorite parts of the article. Not even favorite parts, but just parts that resonated with me. And again, this is very, very interactive. So I look forward to people sharing comments. I will be panning and doing the best I can. Let's just start with what's being said right now, and then I'll go to the comments that came in through the story. In YouTube land, hi there. This article spilled the tea and I was hot, but it needs to be told. I'm going to sip to that. I actually, okay, yeah, let's do that because the main observation that I had was like, we are talking, like we are using our voices like hella loud. And guess who was silent though? Like if you read the article and you saw the video with Paige in her interview, people are speaking up about their programs and whether it's still anonymous because they're on a team, but people weren't afraid to put their name down, you guys, which is, I think, so far from where we've started in this space from probably like a few years ago. Just the willingness to kind of stand your ground and speak up about the issues. And every single team pretty much that Paige reached out to get a response, a comment, a statement, nobody had anything to say. I think it's really telling. I don't think we let up because of that. I really think it's actually so disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? For there to be this in depth of an article, well researched, quotes, statements from people that are part of your organization, and you can't put anybody from your PR department in front of this reporter to kind of respond, or you don't have anything to say. I feel like that's actually like a slap in the face. Like I'm excited that again we're using our voices and people are speaking up, but that they can't even muster up a statement of any sort to address what we're talking about pisses me off. I'm just gonna say that real quick. Not appreciated. Because it's actually substantive issues that they should address. Period. The NFL should not get away with this constant argument of like, each team manages their cheerleaders and I don't have anything, no comment. Like, that's just BS. And this is what I'm going to say, you guys. We're going to have an episode where I go through contracts, like in Makiba lingo, contracts 101, so you guys can understand what your contracts with your teams actually say and why this posture that the NFL takes of like hands off city is not acceptable. Because in these contracts, we are bound by so much under the NFL, things that we have never seen, rules, regulations, not playbooks, but like there's a whole list of policies, regulations, guidelines, etc., that we're bound by, not just the team, but the NFL. And so they actually do have a lot of say and pull in our contracts and in our role as cheerleaders. If we ever had a grievance, and I'll get to that in the contracts episode. But the point is, they can't get away with that argument for too long. But I was actually really disgusted that they didn't have anything to say. And I love in Paige's writing that she points out, like, I asked for a comment, I asked for a statement, placed several phone calls, and nobody wrote me back or said anything. And I just don't think we should just accept that. Somehow we need to continue the conversation because they do need to answer, period. That's my point of view. I'm really, again, I know if I call any front office, like, I want to know what's going on or whatever, they're going to be like, yeah, girl, whatever, bye. I don't even think with some of the interviews that I've requested with people or directors and things like that, I know they might say no to people participating in the podcast because I talk so much shit, but whatever. They do owe us a response though, you guys. And so I think we just have to keep doing what we're doing. I love that people felt comfortable sharing their stories with Paige. I think, again, she covers the space very well and with respect and dignity and understanding the dynamics as to why people don't feel comfortable speaking up all the time, or just understanding the nuances, you know, and what we go through and how difficult it is to actually make change. A lot of people who came forward and used their name obviously aren't associated with the programs anymore. And I know that that creates a little bit of safety, but we have to keep pushing for a voice that somehow drags people to the table. But thanks for your comment there. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit and see what I missed, and then I'll stop flying, and then I'll get into the ones that came in through the story. People said loved it. Yes. The article was just really good. I'm just making sure I'm starting from the beginning. Okay. Somebody said, but also some of the women's versions of decent pay and treatment is still a severely undervalued version of what we all deserve. Yeah, so in talking about pay and treatment, I think we've just been conditioned to know that we've made a lot of progress, even though it's still a bunch of crap. Like, did you guys catch in the article when the woman was talking about not a Shake Shack, but some kind of shake burger joint, whatever, fast food worker that ended up making more than the dancers? Like, you guys do hear, like, this is just such a broader issue around pay equity and gender equity as well. Because, and I really feel bad, I was supposed to go to this panel this morning, or this like whole pay equity conference, but guess what time it started? 6 o'clock in the morning. I just can't. It was on the East Coast. But anyway, it's such a broader issue, and pay is becoming just a really, really like heavily discussed issue. So you have like big retailers and fast food chains that are starting to understand that you can't pay minimum wage. Nobody can live off of that, and their workforce, you know, deserves a big boost in their pay. And so you see things moving up to like 15, 12 an hour. And so like above minimum wage. So if you think about, hey, well, at least we get minimum wage. Well, do you think that it's not even about pitting different jobs against one another, but I think you all know what we do in terms of our role as cheerleaders and how extensive it is into our lives, what we have to dedicate towards it. So minimum wage is just not enough. We can't act like that's like acceptable. We just can't. Like, it's not enough, period. And it can always be better. I mean, we always want more, right? It can always improve. And I think again, I really just wish the NFL would take the reins to decide that they actually need an office, a department. It could be one person even, but one person within the NFL as a league to oversee the management to some extent, or help shape the best practices of all the NFL teams, They do all sorts of stuff like that, coordinating across the various teams for the players. And they've had this problem in their back pocket for freaking forever. So how hard is it to actually appoint some person with coming from our space? Don't just get somebody. You guys know what name I was going to say, but don't just get any old body to do it. Get somebody who comes from this world, that understands this world, that has that's a visionary, that can kind of see what more this could be if they actually devote resources and an actual just role that would be responsible for that. That would be smart. Do you guys, okay, let me just say this too. Do you guys understand how much buying power that we have too, and influence? When I was looking at the Indianapolis, I struggle with that word, Indianapolis Colts cheerleaders and the way that they run their juniors program. So we're talking and you guys each have them with your teams, right? So we're talking about a pipeline of so many young people that are looking at this space and attaching themselves to a brand with their little Colts little uniforms on. And you're talking about hundreds of girls, hundreds of families. Their families are paying all this money for them to have exposure to you, to be able to learn from you. This is just, again, such a broader issue. And you guys have so much more value than I think people realize. And we just need to be at the table. I'm going to be on a soapbox today. I can already tell. And something came through, so bear with me for a second. Okay. All right. Let me move on to the next comment. When will Goodell and the NFL even acknowledge us? Acknowledge the mental health issues. Ooh, girl, or whoever said that. I'm sorry, I don't know if you're... Acknowledge the mental health issues and body dysmorphia we all face after. Why is there an NFLPA but no support for us before, during, and after cheer? What did I do? Can you guys hear me? I don't know what this means. Who can hear me? If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. My phone is blinking at me and I don't know what's happening. Can't hear you. Okay, hold please. What just happened? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? My phone was blinking at me. Sorry about that. I must have pressed mute. Can somebody say, yes, we hear you? Candace joined. Hey, Candace. Can you guys hear me now? Yes. Okay, somebody said yes. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to that comment because I missed it. And Candace is in the building, you guys. Was her shot not bomb.com just so strong and just I got that text that the article was up so early in the morning. But it just shot me up in my bed. Yes, this is the perfect shot for this freaking article. Candace, we love you. If you want to join me, girl, absolutely just do that thing and I will pull you into this convo. I'm going back to the comment because I got interrupted here. When will Goodell and the NFL acknowledge us, acknowledge the mental health issues and body dysmorphia we all face after? Why is there an NFLPA but no support for us before, during, and after cheer? And yes, that just speaks to what I was saying about resources. The NFL Players Association is their union, you guys, and they advocate for this type of support to be there for the players before, during, and after their careers in the NFL. And the fact that they don't acknowledge us, again, is just not acceptable. And, around the time that this all happened, I still have this draft of this letter to Roger Goodell that I'm not putting to bed completely, that really just lists out some commands and demands. And I don't know if again, we're waiting for the big thing to piss us off, but it's just we need an entryway to get this conversation going. And they have to acknowledge us. You can't just act like we're not here or no comment. You can't just keep doing that. You can't. It's not going to work. And I don't know what it'll take. It'll take you guys blowing it up. I lost steam on the letter because, again, I think there's a couple paths that you can take to getting the NFL to acknowledge us. One is a union. And I, again, encourage people who are new to this podcast to listen to the union episode and just try to familiarize yourself with the information that we share, just so you get a kind of just a clear picture of what we're talking about. And then there will be a follow-up episode that is in the works right now in terms of getting it scheduled. But again, the way has been paid for everybody. It's really just a matter of giving you the specific information that you'll need so that you can take those steps. You guys are on these rosters now, you're on the teams, and you can gather together just to hear the information, just to understand the mechanics. And the union that is willing to back NFL cheerleaders in this pursuit have the resources and the manpower, the legal team, frankly, to be able to help guide through the process. And so that to me is what it'll take. They're not going to just for the, because they looked bad in an article, decide, well, you know what, we should reach out to this group of cheerleaders and figure out what we can do better. They might, I don't know, maybe they're talking to directors, but I feel like they get bad press a lot, and it's just damage control, or they just flat out get to ignore it and then move on to the next story. And I'm not willing to accept that. Again, maybe I'll get this letter going and we can just see how we can promote it and drag his butt's attention into this whole mix, because it is very much directed at Roger Goodell. Somebody said that article was so on point. Somebody said the NFL needs to hire a game consultant to speak with the teams and not Petra Pope. Somebody else said it. I didn't say it. That's what I wanted. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not really kidding, but somebody else said it, not Petra Pope. I think Petra Pope can come into the conversation once we have gathered different leaders to drive the conversation. We can collaborate and figure out what her vision is, and we can discuss, but it shouldn't just be her driving it. That's what I'll say. I'm not going to say any more, but somebody else said it. Let's see. I'm going to catch up here. Thank you again, you guys. The comments are amazing, and I have more to address on my phone. Okay, Candace said hi. Okay, thanks. People can hear me. All right. Honey, the Cowboys have been stonewalling Paige and I for years. Ooh. So let's give you guys a shout out for people who've been covering this space and raising these issues for a very, very long time, and for issues with some very popular programs like the DCC. And just, it takes a lot of determination, I would say, as writers, to continue to kind of push these organizations by bringing the issues to light and trying to engage them in conversations. And I can only imagine how frustrating that is, again, to just kind of, like I said, get no response, no comment, and really just building the trust within this community for people to share their stories with you, I think says a lot about your gift as writers. And so hang in there. And again, shout out to the people who participated and talked. I'm still so, I would just suck this whole thing down just to cheers to you, because it just takes that. I hope you felt empowered by speaking up. I hope you know that you're actually making a difference. It may not seem that way. But again, for the writers and for people who participated in interviews, I salute you. Let's see. Okay. Well, I'm going to you guys can chime in at any point. I'm going to get into some of the comments that came in the story and just react and blah, blah, blah. Thanks for dealing with me being outside. Hopefully I'm not melting. All right. So somebody says she liked how many voices were lifted. And that, again, I know we made that comment, but it's just so important. Again, it takes courage, and I hope that you feel proud of yourselves, because I'm super proud of everybody that participated. Somebody said, I think it doesn't delve deep enough into management issues and systemic misogyny. That's a deep point. And again, this goes back to the point earlier too about the mental health issues. There's so many issues in our space that that could have been delved into in this article. It's hard to imagine it being any more thorough. But I think it's really in our space in particular, when we're talking about misogyny and just management issues, especially if the management is part of that, in terms of creating that kind of environment for the dancers and cheerleaders, which I know exists. And it's something that's going to be I would think, even harder to get people to talk about. If you're doing an appearance and you're working with some of the staff and you're actually experiencing people making comments that they shouldn't be making. I mean, this is classic one-on-one sexual harassment, right? But I don't know that people feel old enough to kind of bring those issues and talk about that and what that looks like. I know there was one point in the article that mentioned just the times that their butts been grabbed at corporate events. When we talk about sponsorships, but appearances that we do, not necessarily the ones in the community, but corporate events. And if that's the type of treatment that you're subjected to, like that should be covered by your sexual harassment policy as part of your job. And um, somebody said it's the sexual harassment and double standard between players and cheerleaders for me, sis. Yes, yes, yes. They get away with yeah, there's a lot. That could be a whole effing episode about sexual harassment and misogyny. Should we do that, you guys? I think we should kind of do that. I think we should do that because it's a topic that in and of itself is pretty. It's very very intricate in our space because I think people have this notion based on how we're dressed or how sexy they view us being or whatever that they get carte blanche to act a fool, do whatever they want to, say whatever they want to, look you up and down however they want to, like things that's just not okay. And I know that people probably experienced a lot of that wearing the uniform, and that's not cool. Um, so let's just do that. That'll be an episode. I don't know if it'll fit in this season, but we'll talk about that as a separate episode because there's just and I can give some like historical perspective on that point too. I mean, you saw that in the article too when they talk about when Paige mentioned just the evolution of the DCC program. And so like this is something that's just a mouthful in and of itself. So I think we need to have that conversation. Um, yeah, people are saying yeah. Oh, that's Paige saying, I would love to have explored the misogyny issue more. And it's a tough issue, right, to get into, I think, because nobody's going to go on record. Um, the people that you're really wanting to address about the misogyny, I just don't know how you can get people to talk about it or to face it. It's just in this space, especially. Somebody said, love that this made the cover of SI. Will this hopefully spark more conversation on other platforms like ESPN, radio, et cetera? The NFL needs to hear this finally. And that's one thing I wish I could have done is all day at work is just kind of monitoring how the story got picked up. Paige, you can pipe in too in terms of seeing, how the story ends up getting kind of repeated in different outlets. I think it's something that when I have time, I try to hop up in the comments, especially when you see the stupid comments from people. I mean, you can't address stupidity all the time, but just to add our own flavor to the conversation, because a lot of people don't, there's an immediate eye roll, like, why are we talking about this? Or if it's on ESPN, people say, this is why I don't subscribe or why I don't watch, because you talk about things that are irrelevant. And so there's that mindset that I feel like needs to be addressed in the comments and just making sure that we show up and show support that this is important enough to be a 5,000 freaking word article, front cover of Sports Illustrated type of deal. So I think people always want to minimize our worth and our presence and act like it's just cheerleading, so no big deal. But we have to kind of show up and represent to say that, like, yes, this shit matters and we're going to talk about it and it's worthy of discussion. And again, just keeping the conversation going. So I think we have to, because otherwise we're just going to not wait, but we either make noise now and use the momentum, or we're just like sitting ducks until the next screwed up thing happens. And then we're all up in arms again. And there's another article and you already know what I'm going to say. I mean, it's just going to be circular. So I'm monitoring comments everywhere. I'm going to shoot to another one that came in on this story. Let's see. The first of these articles I've seen with cheerleaders willing to name themselves and their teams. So again, shout out to people who had that courage to do that. I think they're people that we look up to in this space. So I think being willing to put your name down and not be afraid to say that this is what I think and this is how I feel. Like, I just think it's so powerful, and we hear you. And I know that takes guts, and maybe you've decided that you're not performing for that particular team. It really absolutely should not impact you from making any other team, being outspoken. But did you guys catch that in the article too? Now all these little points are coming to me and this was really actually disappointing to hear that, and I don't know how I survived interviews. Well, actually interviews weren't that drilled down like they are right now, but when Paige made the point about, when Paige made the point about, just how in the evaluation process, maybe it was DCC's audition or interviews, where when people spoke up and said something that could be taken like like I don't make the uniforms. You know that point. You guys read the article if you don't know. I don't want to misquote it, but basically it was something where one of the candidates said very strongly, like the uniform doesn't make me, like kind of like I make the uniform because I bring something to the table, which I think is a very empowering thing to say. You know, it sounds like something. It's not even about like feeling yourself. You're being humble, but you're acknowledging your worth. Okay, just birds, guys. Hi. Loud birds. Um, but I was really discouraged, and I think somebody else, maybe it was Melanie from. I hope I got her name right, from the first ladies of football when she worked in the front office, that acknowledged that happens all the time, where if people kind of are outspoken or speak up, then it kind of is like a ding against that person. And that pisses me off too. That really, I find that unsettling because yes, you want somebody that can represent the brand and be a cheerleader of the team and the management. And maybe it's not the time to be critical when you're in the auditions process, but to think that people are holding it against you to be the strong, independent, powerful women that they try to set out that their team is composed of is really super. I'm really disturbed by that. And I know that's a reality. Again, my mouth goes and goes and goes. I'm no longer on a team and I'm not auditioning to be on a team. But that should not count against you. Anybody whose name is in that article absolutely should not be essentially punished for using their voice. I'm disgusted to think that in the interviews that's kind of like the feedback that people have about people who assert themselves and speak up for themselves. That's really unfortunate. You need a lot of yes ma'ams and, you know, people who will just follow and do whatever. Like I don't like that. Somebody said it's huge that people are, you know, willing to give their name. It shows that we're becoming more willing to speak out and share. And there is more that needs to be done, but this is a great step. Let's see, I'm going to jump here. Somebody said, absolutely love the article. Speaking of contracts, if I recall, I was not allowed to do any media without my coach's consent. So they literally have the current girls gag ordered so they can't address any of this until retirement. Big problem. Yeah, that's why I can barely talk. That's why when Candace was the first current cheerleader on a team that was able to be part of the podcast, it was such a big deal because she actually was able to get the green light. And I thought that was a huge deal. But you're right. In these articles, or not articles, in these contracts, there are so many restrictions on what you can and can't do. They do want to kind of monitor and control what you say. And so basically it does make sense why everybody comes out and says things more freely when they aren't held to that kind of confidentiality or media consent kind of like restriction. It's really, it's kind of interesting. We're going to get into the contracts. So you guys are really going to be shocked when you see how much, I'm sure you read them. I hope you did. But when you actually see the commonalities in the contracts, if you want me to review your contract, you can still send it to me at procheerleadingpodcast@gmail.com. Again, teams won't be named, but I will be showing and speaking to some of the similarities that I see with the contracts. So I think you guys will be very enlightened by what we're signing our lives away to in these agreements. But yeah, that's why people can't talk and say anything. Somebody said also concerned about lack of fan interaction from newly co-ed or athleticized teams. You guys actually gave that tea in one of these Instagram live sessions where you were like, fans don't even want to take pictures with us because we don't look like anybody special, or, you know, we're just kind of like regular fans wearing some like yoga gear basically. So people aren't really like seeing us as like these superheroes or whatever, or like kind of like what you would think of in Disneyland where you're an actual character or in a costume that's impressive enough to take a picture. I think that's so sad because that is what I think draws. And when you see the comment in there about even appearances, like if I'm holding a corporate event and I want people to be excited about a sports team and I invite the cheerleaders to be a part of that, the guests they're not going to get a player to take a picture with, right? And if the people that come don't even look like, I don't know, it just says a lot. So if appearances are down and they're now practicing like 1 hour a week, I think somebody said in that article, the fan interaction has shifted and it's a little different because they aren't getting that wow factor anymore. Back to the uniform point that we've been talking about. Like that's kind of sad and interesting. And again, I think that also leads to this diminishing idea of what value we bring. There is something to be said for people who can actually feel touched by the organization or feel a connection to an organization when they can't afford to go to games. They will never meet one of these athletes in person, but there is somebody who is decked out in a uniform that represents this team, that interacts with you on a one-on-one basis, has a conversation with you, smiles with you, gets to know your kid, holds your baby with a loaded diaper, like all of the things to like make you feel connected to the team. And that is kind of what you would frame as like goodwill associated with that trademark, with that brand. And that is something that we invest in every goddamn appearance, every performance. It's all this entertainment brand. And we help build that and we keep that. Hey, Bridget, I was talking about you. You guys, thank you again, Bridget, for such a wonderful time. But that's the value that we bring, and it's called an intangible thing because you really can't easily put a dollar value on it, but that's something that we build day in, day out with our fan interaction. So if by virtue of some of these changes that they're making, that they are kind of ruining even that dynamic where fans are just kind of like, yeah, I mean, we're not really feeling it anymore. I think that's just a very interesting development. And it's actually very, very sad if you ask me. Um, let's see. Somebody says it's hard to hope for change when it's no big deal for them to wipe out teams, and that is terrifying. Um, and that's where, let's just come together for a minute. Let's see. It's okay. You missed the Austin chat at the beginning. I just want you guys to not feel like despair just from kind of like reading something like that, where you're thinking that the NFL doesn't care, the teams aren't listening. I think there's a lot to say for. I think there's a lot of conversations that we just won't be privy to that are happening behind, closed doors in terms of reactions to this article. And I think we have to remain hopeful for that. That maybe the article and the points that were made are resonating with. Maybe it's like the dance director's boss or VP who maybe this director was advocating for dancers and was making a lot of points, and they're just kind of like, but maybe seeing this article and seeing how prevalent and widespread the issues are, maybe there'll be a different amount of attention paid to it internally. Like, oh, do we have issues like this? Should we be taking a look at things? And again, I think we just really have to have some hope. And I put that in the story. Like, is this really progress for our space? And I want to consider it progress, but I really want to hear from you guys too. If you think that we are making progress, and if not, like, how do you think we should kind of get there? Because I feel like sometimes when these articles drop, the weight of them, like, we're excited and we're pumped and we're like, yes, people are speaking up and like, this is great. But then you are left with this sinking feeling of like, well, who's really listening, or what's really going to change from this? And I always try to be optimistic. I'm a realist, but I do try to be optimistic about the fact that we're shining light on issues that may or may not have been taken seriously enough. If Sports Illustrated will give that much time and space, I think, to an issue like this, you guys, I think that is very encouraging and inspiring. And so I would say that we are making progress in bringing some issues to light. I think the next step is obviously having some meetings and some meaningful conversations with the leaders of the NFL. How we get there, I mean, I think unions speak loud and clear, but maybe we have to take a different approach. I'm going to come over here to this comment. Somebody said, I remember that and saw that episode. Oh, with the DCC training camp candidates who said this can help her with getting a job in the media. And the head DCC queens didn't like it when people have a dream. So yeah, when you're looking at leveraging your platform that you have as a pro cheerleader and you're vocal about kind of your goals outside of that, the fact that that can count against you is really ridiculous. I mean, I think people know that you give so much time and energy to the role as a professional cheerleader. So the restrictions that are in your contracts, even once you're on the team, about how you can leverage that and how you can speak up about the fact that you are a professional cheerleader so that you can build a brand for yourself after dancing. I think that's really, again, like, why all this control over us? Like, I really don't understand. It makes no sense to me. And I think, again, the conversation about contracts and a lot of the restrictions that we're held by and the rationale behind that. if you want to hear about a different way of doing things, you guys, the interview I had with Chrissia Long, Brooklyn's Finest, I think is what the episode is named. She talks about how she manages this for her dancers. Her dancers on her team they're out there working. One of the guys was in the Heights. I mean, for the Nets team hype. I mean, they have dancers that are in videos, like represented by agents. They actually have agents that come to their auditions process to scout for people to add to their agency. And so I think that there is a definite way to have the right flexibility on your team, where as long as the dancers are committed to to the team and the all the practices and all the things that they have to do to maintain that commitment, but allowing them to leverage it and to build a brand and a career for themselves after they dance it's absolutely feasible if you're not a freaking control freak and just hating on people. I mean, like, you have to be able to build your life for when you stop dancing, you guys. Everybody kind of, not everybody, but it's easy to fall off a cliff, if you don't have that kind of support while you're on the team. So great point. We'll get into that with the contracts episode. Paige said I had so many examples from the DCC show about how how weird they are. Have a dream, but don't use us to get to that dream. Be confident, but you don't make the uniform. Yeah, a lot of contradictory. You're great, you're amazing, but not without us. I don't know. We can definitely go on and on. DCC is just an interesting team. That control is really tight. I think, again, the mindset, and I won't say that every cheerleader completely bought into it necessarily, but to survive, to make the team in and of itself, you definitely had to play along and drink some of the damn Kool-Aid on a lot of these restrictions and walk that line. But it's super restrictive. I bet the examples go on and on and on. Let's see. Geez, come on, somebody. It's time. I mean, the Bucks have a female owner. Let's see. What does it say? A female owner, honey. Okay. I can read you guys. And she does nothing to advocate for women. I can attest to that. The NFL does not like press like this, hoping the pressure stays on the league top to bottom. The Washington football team announced a female co-owner yesterday. I saw that article. So let's get into female owners, you guys, because I've talked about this before, but I feel like a lot of the times of these issues that come up, the way that we're treated is often perpetrated by a woman. And it's sad as hell that is the case. But female owners, you would think, would be advocating. Like, what was the Washington football team little panel thing that they had, where they had Coach Rivera's wife, and they had all these people from the organization, and they were talking about all this female empowerment, and it was right on the heels of everything that went down with the Washington football team. And I just wanted to gag. I was so just grossed out, because you're so right. There are women in these positions who feel a certain way about what we're wearing, how we're dressed. Well, that's the same thing. How we're dressed, what we're doing out on the field, like so many thoughts and opinions. And Dan Snyder, to have his wife appointed as a co-owner, says nothing. Like, I was just so sickened by the whole like headline for the article. Like, he's got a female co-owner, a gender neutral team, and like, they're just acting like we are checking all the boxes to make ourselves this equitable, wonderful place, despite what they've done in the past. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't really work that way. And I don't know that a female leadership, unfortunately, is an automatic checkbox for women really supporting women. And it's obviously our space is co-ed, so I'm not saying that it's all about that, but it is troubling that if there is female leadership or ownership of the team, especially if these issues are happening underneath your nose, that you wouldn't take some kind of interest in it. If you guys want to rewind even to what happened with the Dallas Mavs dancers, I know they have like a team that's formed now, but when they disbanded the Mavericks dancers, the woman, Cynthia, I can't remember her last name, but she was on my hit list for a while because she came in guns blazing, and you're the president of the Dallas Mavericks organization, and you can't think of anything better to do than to disband and disrespect the women that were part of that team. Like, you'd be surprised what decisions come down from women in sports, like having done or considered a career in sports and entertainment back in the day for myself, I was definitely turned off by the men and the sexual harassment and crap that I saw in that realm. But also the women, like when you move up the ranks in front office management roles in sports, especially as a woman, it can be very, 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 very cutthroat. And once you get to that spot, you are even more like pushing people down sometimes. It's really interesting, but I think they should be held accountable and held to a higher standard of supporting women. I know I was riding Cynthia really, really hard because she was speaking at all sorts of events and just touting it like she was just a woman's woman and talking all sorts of stuff and not really walking the walk. And so, yes, these female owners and yes, women in the organization should see things like this, see articles like this, and actually it should resonate differently, and they should be wanting to be a part of the solution and do something about it. And it's really problematic that they don't. Um, let's see. Oh, y'all been talking? Let's see. Yeah, Paige said it's interesting timing of the announcement of the female co-owner for the Washington football team. Yeah, no surprise. They didn't have a comment to the article, but they got a little soundbite. That's what they always do. It's like damage control or whatever. They just tried. Sorry, I did press don't call me, but sorry, somebody tried to call. But yeah, it's just kind of like they only respond to what they want to respond to, and they kind of counter bad press with their own little soundbite of an article or news that they want to put out into the space. Um, you definitely have to drink the Kool-Aid and make the memories, and then write the article after. I don't want anybody jeopardizing their spot. So obviously do what you got to do. But yeah, you probably aren't safe till after you retire your pom-poms, which is unfortunate. But again, shout out to the people who spoke off the record that just wanted to put it out there, what they were experiencing, going through. I get why you didn't put your name down, and super shout out to everybody that did. I think it's really, really inspiring. Let's see, the Mavs had one lady come to manage them, even though she was a former cheerleader, and look how that ended. Yeah, I mean, and you guys know, like I cheer for everybody, I root for everybody. I love strong leaders. I love people who, you know, come into these roles that have a background in professional cheer and dance. I think it makes a difference in how they lead. But for the people, sorry, there's here my lip gloss. I can't stand that. Or I'll just eat it. I don't know. Get off of me. Got it. But yeah, I love women reaching certain roles of authority. I think, again, it makes a big difference when they have this background. But I get really, really testy when I see what they do with that position of power, how they mismanage it, how they abuse it, and how they perpetrate some of these things, some of these very same issues that we're talking about. They can just keep that going in the way that they lead the team. Let's see. Also, Denise York, many years with the 49ers, only silenced or worse. Oh, you guys are dropping names and everything. Sorry, I'm spicy today. That's okay though. I would be a lot spicier if I took more sips, but this conversation is good. I want to make sure I'm getting to everybody. The Mavs get accused of sexual harassment, and the solution was to get rid of the women being harassed. How is that okay? So you guys see the themes though, right? Like if you want a recap of what happened with the NBA, Paige wrote an article for Time Magazine that kind of outlined everything that was going on with the NBA. And this is like just like a formula, you know, the women get harassed, then we're the ones that have to be fixed. And that was my one point. And Paige, thank you for capturing that in the article well, of what point I was trying to make. Like when we are the victims of sexual harassment or just all of these conditions that we know suck, I just don't understand how it gets to be like, so now to fix and address that problem, we're going to actually like tweak this with you. Tone down the way that you dress. I don't want to see any more cleavage anymore. I think it'll make it a lot easier for people not to like sexually harass you if you actually can like look like you're, you know, covered up from head to toe. You know, when your dances, I just think that people might get turned. I don't know what is going through these people's heads when they start picking and tweaking at what we do. And even where we internalize that, that was the part that I wanted to at least make a little bit more clear, is like, we have to stop giving so much weight to this narrative, because if we start changing everything about us and what we do, how we dance, how we dress, and we still keep going through the same shit. Like, that's not the issue. That's not what needs to be addressed. And we do not need fixing. We never did. We don't. It's the mentality of men, it's the mentality of these women too that are in these positions that kind of make these similar judgments about who we are and what we're about. There's just a lot of hate. I don't want to say haters, but I just feel like people misunderstand us so much, or they assume that I don't know what the dynamic is, but it's like we go through so much to get screened to be at this level, and then there's just so much done to try to pick us apart and tear us down. And I'm just so sick of that shit. I'm just sick of it. It's either tearing you down or keeping you in this neat box and not letting you stray too far outside of it. Because what? I don't know. What are they afraid of? Like, really? If you're leading a team in a way where you're actually walking the walk and talking the talk, having strong, outspoken people who are assertive, that are, powerful in their own right, I just think that why are you trying to limit people so much? And that's why I'm just so proud, Candace. I don't know if you're still there, but I just commented when you on my post that I just really admire your boldness, your audacity. I know you're a Scorpio, and that's just something that we just do naturally. But I just really appreciate how boldly you live your life and the truth of your life with no apologies, just super transparent. And flaws, good days, bad days, but you just own it so powerfully. And I thought it came across so well when you talked your talk about what we go through to get to this level. Like, I don't think it's said enough that you guys are like, we are the equivalent of like the NFL and the NBA in terms of the players. In the space of cheerleading and dance, you guys are at the top of the food chain. You have reached the ultimate big kahuna. You have worked your whole entire life to get here. You have mastered your trade. You beat out, like as Candace said, you beat out so many people for the spots that you hold. And so that's why you have to just like fill up that space unapologetically in terms of like, now's not the time to cower. No, I'm sorry. It's not. You have worked so hard to get here, and we deserve that respect of like I can't think of any other sport, and maybe it's just something that's happening in other sports too. Like, when you think of like the women's soccer team or like the women's gymnastics team, and where people are just like fed up with the shit, and they realize that, hey, I make this sport, or I actually, my voice matters, and they just kind of take that and own that. Really, it gets me pumped, because that's the presence that I want to continue to see. And I just hope that's like a ripple effect. And Candace, like, again, you embody that every day, and I'm just crazy about you for it. I think you just made a lot of good points in that article. And I think, again, everybody who spoke up and participated, I know that you've touched somebody to feel a little bit more, either like somebody else feels the same way that I do, or maybe there's something that I can do in my role, or maybe something that I can do to speak up. And so, again, I'm really proud of the article page. I just think it, again, covered a lot of things in our space that needed to be addressed and talked about. And I just feel, I can't lie, I'm feeling what I'm seeing of people just feeling more empowered to speak. It's just, to me, I think that's progress from where we were. And I hope that you guys also think that we're making some progress towards just bettering this space once and for all. Like, it is better than when this podcast started almost 3 years ago, come October, like that was the main reason that the podcast started, was because we weren't able to freely talk and say how we feel and what we thought. So I think we've made a lot of progress in that space. Somebody said the NFL's position also of each team handles their own squad is not acceptable. Imagine saying that with the players. Yeah. And that's why they have a union. That's why the players have a union, because they can't have like a certain set of rules going on for, the 49ers and just a complete other type of situation with the Saints. Like, they can't even function like that as a league. They have to have a collective set of rules. And that's where the union comes in, you guys, and the NFL plays a huge role in what happens with the union and their negotiations back and forth. And so we don't have a collective voice. And they keep pushing this narrative like we are hands off with it, even though They are not hands off of it in our contracts. And again, I'm so excited to point all those points out in the contracts in an episode for you guys because again, it flies in the face. And that was in my draft of the letter to Roger Goodell. You can't hold this position. It's just not even consistent. If we wanted to like sue our team, something really egregious happened, you know, you're forced into arbitration. Guess who the person is that's hearing your case, you guys? Roger. Roger. He is the ultimate say. He has the ultimate say so. And so for somebody who has nothing to do with cheerleading whatsoever and hands off, it's up to the team. Why is he the sole decider on any claim that comes? Like, you guys have no idea. I can't wait to get in these goddamn contracts. I will make it juicy, I promise. And you will be able to follow me with these legal concepts. But understanding the stronghold that the NFL has in your contracts is something that I think is something that we just have to fully absorb and understand. Is it something that we can negotiate when we make the team? No. But if you have a union, is that something that you can carve away at and get your power back? Yeah, period. Okay, so let's see. That was, somebody said that was one of my favorite quotes, perfectly captured, felt that so much. I don't know what that quote was, but I'm glad you felt something that resonated with you. If that was said to me at my corporate job, I would be retired on that settlement money. Yes. Yes. And you guys know that this is no different than any other job. Like the shit that you take here, you wouldn't take in your day-to-day job. Like you really wouldn't. If you worked your ass off and you deserved a raise or a promotion, I would love to think that people here in this space would be advocating for themselves unapologetically. Like, let's talk about my performance for the last year. I did this, I did that, blah, blah, blah. You would definitely confidently assert yourself. If you saw that you were being treated differently than the person next to you, like you would speak up and say something. If you were sexually harassed on the job, you would say something. There's no reason for it to be any different. And there are laws around how these things can be handled. And again, wait till I get into your contracts because there's man, they are so shady. I can't stand it. But you're right. If you wouldn't take it on your regular job, you shouldn't take it anywhere. But in the NFL, they let those comments fly. Yeah, they do. But we're going to, oh, Candace, thank you for making people like me feel safe to do so. Candace, we love you. And that was such a dope picture that you took at your house. Goodness, I can't with you. Thank you, seriously. And I'm honored to have this platform for everybody to feel safe. Again, you know, this is like the vault. If you have something to say and you want to say it with your chest and you kind of can't, like, send it to me. I'll say it for you. And it'll just get out into the universe, like how we're thinking and what we have to say. Everybody's giving Candace love in the comments. Somebody said, come on, union. And just advocating for yourself is so important. I couldn't agree more. I feel like this article was a big statement of that. And again, shout out to everybody that was a part of it. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything on YouTube, and then I better let you guys go. Oh yeah, just criminalize the victim, but victimize the criminal. The teams say we're a family, but have a toxic environment. That's just the truth of the matter. I like that. Criminalize the, I don't like it, but I like the way that it's phrased, criminalize the victim, but victimize the criminal, because that's what we see over and over again in our space. Let's see. My girlfriend had to beg to get a $1 a year raise as a 5th and 6th year vet on Bucks. We can't get better if we don't demand better. Well, why does it take? Okay, this is a good segue. So surveys that are dropping. I know it's kind of edged towards the end of the season, but that's okay because people hadn't even made the teams to tell us anything, right? So tomorrow, the diversity link will be up in the bio where people can, similar to the U.S. Census Bureau, self-identify with just your name and first initial, so that we can track a more updated diversity survey for, I'm doing NFL first because I know NBA is going into auditions, so we're going to have them separated. I would love to do this for other leagues, you guys, but we're working with what we can right now. But it'll be a link in my bio for you to fill it out in the NFL. I kind of go through my own analysis. Everybody who's willing to self-identify will just help validate the answers if you have a unique background, obviously. And this isn't like I'm part Spanish, a little German, and a little like what box would you be checking on the U.S. Census Bureau? Because that's kind of like what we're working with in terms of stats. You guys get my drift? Like all of that matters, but like which box would you be checking? Because that's just how we have to track it, right? So that'll be happening, and I'll probably have to like move it to the website so it'll always live there so people can complete that. And probably when I start the next season, we'll post the actual results of the diversity survey. You guys know I'm always active on Instagram and Twitter, even when I'm not putting out episodes. But the other survey that's also going to be up before the end of the season is the pay or the compensation survey that I'm hoping that everybody participates in. And I don't care if that's NFL, NBA, semi-pro, name your team. Again, it's really going to be anonymized, but the data that's going to come from like what your minimum wage is, or if that's how you're paid, what the bump is for seniority, any like if you're paid a certain amount per game or a certain amount for appearances and practices, like whatever your compensation structure for your team, break it down in the survey, and I can share that back out with you so that you can get a sense for like what this space really looks like and where there is room for improvement. I think it's so much knowledge in or power in knowledge, and knowing kind of knowledge is power. Is that what I meant? The point is, the more we know, more powerful we are in this space. I think you can have a little bit more backing when you're like, well, the Bucks make, or whatever. It's just a comparative analysis. I think everybody who's willing to participate in that will really be telling for what the compensation structure looks like in pro and where there's room for improvement, who's doing it well, who really needs to get it together. Like when you think about minimum wage, you guys, in different markets and how minimum wage in certain places can be like way, way, way low. You know what I'm saying? And then like a place like Seattle has a probably double that in some instances. Like we really need to get a good sense of what's going on out there. So 2 surveys coming your way. Knowledge is power. Thank you. Help me out here. But yeah, these surveys I think will help us inform. We haven't done a diversity survey since 2019. That was for NFL and NBA. I definitely wanted to do one sooner, but we had the Rona and weird squads, and so things got all amok. But teams are forming, and I'm really excited about getting that data out there. So NBA will be later when the NBA audition season is over as well. And we'll see who's looking good out there and where there is room for improvement. I've been definitely eyeing the rosters as they come out, and I'm just excited to see how we're stacking up right now. Somebody's going to send their surveys to all their girls. Yes, stats and the union, you guys, come on, let's get it. And that episode, like I said, following up on the union with more specifics as to kind of like a lot of probably the burning questions, like the more specific questions, like how does this actually work? That information is coming to you, and all it takes is just one gathering of whoever's interested in hearing about it from the team. That's like step 1. And I know you guys can do that without people being a traitor and busting it all up. And like, it's nothing to be scared of. Getting information is not anything to be scared of, you guys. So if you want to just get together a good number of people from your team that are just willing to listen and learn of what's available to you, that would be just like an amazing step towards progress. So I'm hoping that people will be open to that. That will be coming your way before the end of the season, okay? And this outfit slays. Okay, thanks. It's like I'm just kidding. This view, I'm feeling all of the things. You guys have been so sweet. Thank you so much. And I know there was a comment from Paige that I wanted to. Oh, she said, thank you everyone for reading and for everyone who spoke to me. My DMs are open if anyone has any feedback. Paige, again, wonderful job. I know that was a ton of work. I appreciate your passion for this space and the fact that you care enough to write about it and do it in such a respectful way. I just think you're really talented as a writer. And I just appreciate all the work that you put into it. And I definitely think you've earned a lot of trust in this space. And, you guys show Paige some love, give her some feedback. I hope it's mostly positive. And get out there and rep for this article. Get up in the streets and social media land and give your 2 cents and stand your ground with not like some of the trolls, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think when if a news outlet will give this kind of space to this type of story and nobody's out there commenting on it, like nobody's, I get there's some privacy concerns for you guys, but be bold in standing up for what this article represents to you. That's all I'm going to say. The sun is going down. My drink is all watered down, but you guys didn't hear me slurping my straw this whole time. So I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you joining on YouTube as well. You guys, the season is almost over. I asked for some patience and grace because I will be on vacation next week, but I will definitely, I don't even have an episode for tomorrow technically, unless I get up into these contracts. I have a lot going on tomorrow. It's the end of the quarter at work. So I'm doing the best I can. But it's coming. There might be like a little hiatus, like for a week or two, but there's some great stuff. It's just some scheduling little snafus, but we'll get it together. Thank you all for joining. I hope you have a wonderful night. Any last questions before I sign off and take my last little slurp that you guys will see anyway? Somebody said, thank you, Paige. Shared the article with a friend and former Lions cheerleader, and she also agrees. So there's a lot of people that know that there's a lot of truth in that article. So I'm sending you guys off. I will see you. When am I coming back? When am I coming back to Austin, or when am I coming back? No, I hope I'm going back to Austin soon. If there is a break, you guys, in episodes, it'll probably be no more than 2 weeks. I'll keep you posted. The contracts article or episode is probably going to come sooner than you think. I got all riled up talking about it. So it'll just be me talking, but I will make contract sound so juicy that you will follow it and be really obsessed and pulling out your own contract. If you want me to talk about your contract, email it to procheerleadingpodcast@gmail.com. I'm signing off now. You guys have a wonderful night. Be safe. Thanks again for joining. See you next week. Or not, because I said I might not. I won't do an episode, but I'll be around.